Trade war in North America countries appeared to have degenerated into another level, after Canada former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau resigned and gave room for a professional economist, Carney Mark, to take over as the Canadian Prime Minister at a critical time. Another professional economist, President Donald Trump of the United States, considered to be the aggressor, had launched trade war against Canada and Mexico with missiles of heavy taxations, following which, Carney, who in 2007 was named Governor of the Bank of Canada, where he was responsible for Canadian monetary policy during the global financial crisis and led the Canadian Central Bank until 2013, when he was appointed as Governor of the Bank of England, where he led the British Central Bank's response to Brexit and the early phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, called on Canadians on Sunday to hold on April 28, 2025 the federal elections expected to be held in October 2025, to get the people's mandates to tackle President Donald Trump, whom Carney accused of wanting to break Canadians, so that the US can annex Canada as a state under US rule. This may interest you to know that President Donald Trump, who graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 1968 with a bachelor's degree in economics and became the president of his family's real estate business in 1971, which Trump renamed it the Trump Organization, and began acquiring and building skyscrapers, hotels, casinos, and golf courses, which along the line, Trump led the inherited family business into 6 bankruptcies in the 1990s and 2000s, forcing Trump to begin side ventures, and from 2004 to 2015, Trump hosted the reality television show, The Apprentice, which scaled up his popularity, and luckily for Trump, he won the 2016 presidential election against Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton and became U.S. President for the first time, and later returned to the White House for the second time after he won the November 2024 U.S. presidential elections. Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, on Sunday called early elections for April 28, pledging to defeat Donald Trump's drive to annex the United States' huge northern neighbor. Carney was chosen by Canada's centrist Liberal Party to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister, but he has never faced the country's broader electorate, according to local and international media. I've just requested that the Governor-General dissolve Parliament and call an election for April 28. She has agreed, Carney said in a speech to the nation, referring to King Charles III's representative in Canada, a member of the British Commonwealth. On his X social media post on Sunday, Carney stated that, "We need to build the strongest economy in the G7. We need to deal with President Trump's tariffs." Earlier in the month, Trump ordered the enforcement of his imposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico goods or products, shifting relations between the 3 neighboring countries. "We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty," Carney said, speaking to outlets in Ottawa. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. "He wants to break us so America can own us," Carney said. "We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons." Trump has repeatedly claimed that Canada should join the US as the 51st state, a move that Canadian officials refuse and call outlandish. It was expected for Carney to call for a quick election, as he doesn't have a seat in Parliament and the Liberals don't have a majority, according to the New York Times, as Carney will face off against the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre. In power, for a decade, the Liberal government had slid into deep unpopularity, but Carney will be hoping to ride a wave of Canadian patriotism to a new majority. "I'm asking Canadians for a strong, positive mandate to deal with President Trump," Carney said, adding that the Republican wants to break us, so America can own us. "We will not let that happen. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada," he added, pledging not to meet Trump until the US leader recognizes Canadian sovereignty. Trump has apparently undermined his northern neighbor by repeatedly dismissing its borders as artificial, and urging it to join the United States as the 51st state. The ominous remarks have been accompanied by Trump's swirling trade war, with the imposition of tariffs on imports from Canada, which could severely damage its economy. Trudeau, who had been in power since 2015, was deeply unpopular when he announced he was stepping down, with Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives seen as election favorites just weeks ago. Local observers had said that the polls have narrowed spectacularly in Carney's favor since he took over the Liberals, who only hold a minority in Parliament, and analysts are now calling the race too close to call. Many consider this to be an existential election, unprecedented. Felix Mathieu, a political scientist at the University of Winnipeg, told AFP as reported. It is impossible at this stage to make predictions, but this will be a closely watched election with a voter turnout that should be on the rise. Poilievre, 45, is a career politician, first elected when he was only 25. A veteran tough-talking campaigner, he has sometimes been tagged as a libertarian and a populist. On Sunday, Poilievre, seen by some as too similar to Trump in style and substance, set the tone as reported by AFP. "I want the opposite of what Donald Trump wants," the conservative leader said, promising to base his campaign on bread-and-butter economic issues and the worries of regular people. Carney, 60, has spent his career outside of electoral politics. He spent more than a decade at Goldman Sachs and went on to lead Canada's central bank, and then the Bank of England. As for the US leader, he professes not to care, while pushing ahead with plans to further strengthen tariffs against Canada and other major trading partners on April 2nd. "I don't care who wins up there," Trump said this week. "But just a little while ago, before I got involved and totally changed the election, which I don't care about," the Conservative was leading by 35 points. Mark Carney, during his inauguration as the Canadian PM earlier this month, said, "Today, we're building a government that meets the moment. Canadians expect action, and that's what this team will deliver. A smaller, experienced cabinet that moves faster, secures our economy, and protects Canada's future." Trudeau had announced his resignation in January as polls showed his Liberal Party would likely face defeat in an upcoming election. But the party's fortunes have since improved amid growing Canadian antipathy toward Trump and his policies. In a farewell message posted on X earlier this month, Trudeau said, "Thank you, Canada, for trusting in me, for challenging me, and for granting me the privilege to serve the best country, and the best people, on earth." The Liberals have been courting Carney for more than a decade, and he advised Trudeau on Canada's economic recovery from COVID-19. But the banker-turned-politician did not make his official entrance until Trudeau announced his resignation in January. All of his competitors were sitting politicians. Carney is in the unusual situation to become Canada's Prime Minister without holding a seat in Parliament. We had, earlier in the year, reported that the three North American countries, Canada, Mexico and the United States, US, which had planned to begin trade war with missiles of heavy taxations or tariffs today, Tuesday, February 4, 2025, have paused the intending war for 30 days to enable both parties cement the deals President Donald Trump entered with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo after the leaders of the North American countries had phone conversation almost throughout on Monday.
President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country.
But he didn't fail.
He wants to break us so America can own us.
Of the promise of Canada.
We will not let that
It was a
happen.
very simple promise.
Former Nigeria President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has reacted to the declaration of state of emergency, partial military rule in Rivers State and the suspension of the governor of the state, Siminalayi Fubara, and the State House of Assembly lawmakers by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whom Jonathan accused of abuse of office, power and privileges, with the former president saying that the presidency led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the National Assembly, NAS, led by both Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, the Speaker, House of Representatives, Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, and the National Judicial Council, NJC, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Kadirat Kekere Ekan, know the right thing to do but they refuse to it, citing an Indian proverbs that says, "When a person is really sleeping, it is easy to wake up such a person, but when a person is pretending to be sleeping, it is very difficult to wake up such a person, and thereafter, categorically stated that the three arms of government in Nigeria are pretending to be sleeping, with emphasis that no business investor brings his or her money to invest in a country where the executive dictates for judges what the judgment should be. The former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who once as the president of Nigeria declared a state of emergency in some northern states without suspending civil rule or allowing the military to take over the governance of the states, stated this while speaking as the chairman at the Hask Satumari Foundation colloquium in Abuja on Saturday. These actions by key actors in the executive and legislative arms of government paint the country in a negative light, Jonathan said. Jonathan said although it is not the norm for former presidents to comment on issues in the polity so as not to heat up the polity, he insisted that the image of the country and how much investments a country attracts is heavily dependent on the actions of the executive, legislature and judiciary of the country. According to him, his comment was necessitated by persistent calls from many Nigerians to speak on the events in Rivers State as a prominent son of the Niger Delta. The former Nigerian leader said, "We're talking about building a society where no one is oppressed, as reflected in the top paragraph of our national anthem." As a former president, and also from the Niger Delta, when the issue of suspending the governor came out, I think people called on me, President Jonathan, you should say something. What is happening in Nigeria today regarding the situation in Rivers States is like an Indian proverb that said that if somebody is sleeping, really sleeping, you can easily wake up that person. But if that person is pretending to sleep, you find it difficult to wake up that person. The key actors in Nigeria, from executives to the legislature, and the judiciary, they know the correct thing to do, but they are refusing to do it. They are pretending to sleep. Waking such a person is extremely difficult, but the person knows the right thing. The clear abuse of offices, clear abuse of power, clear abuse of privileges, cutting across from the three arms of government, from the executive to the parliament to the judiciary. And I always plead with our people that whatever we do affects everybody. No businessman can bring his money to invest in a country where the judiciary is compromised, where a government functionary can dictate to judges what judgment they will give. No man brings his money to invest in that economy because we are taking a big risk. So whatever we do affects everybody. And if we want to build a nation where our children and our grandchildren, no matter how painful it is, we must strive to do what is right. It may cost us, but we must endeavor, and pay the price to insist on doing what is right. Whether you are holding an executive office as a president, a minister, governor, or special advisor, executive, whether you are holding an office in the parliament, senate, or rep, whether you are a judicial officer in high courts or appellate courts, we must strive to do what is right. If we want to build a nation that our children will be proud of. As we engage in these discussions, let us remember that promoting social change is not a one-time event, but a continuous process. It requires a sustained commitment, collective action, and unwavering dedication to the values that promote good governance. Former Nigeria President, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan's words end in quotes. We had reported that the Rivers State's partial military ruler, a retired Vice Admiral and former Nigeria Chief of Naval Staff, Iboki Ekwe-Ibas on Thursday evening made his maiden statewide broadcast, calling on any troublemakers, apparently speaking directly to the militants who have been linked to the destruction and bombing of crude oil pipelines in the state, to desist from such act henceforth because his government is appointed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a sole administrator in Rivers State and approved by both the House of Representatives and the Senate of the National Assembly on Thursday, has no patience to act against any action that threatened the peace, social and economic stability of the oil-rich Rivers State. This, former presidential spokesperson on new media, Bashir Ahmed revealed that it was under the leadership of former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2018 that the National Assembly repealed and enacted a new law that gave the president the powers to suspend an elected sitting governor and lawmakers in the State House of Assembly, but, by Nigeria legal system, the acts enacted by the National Assembly automatically becomes null and void when the acts or laws enacted by the National Assembly contradicted or violated any session of the Nigeria 1999 Constitution as amended. We have reported that the Nigeria lawmakers in the lower chamber of the House of Representatives have approved the proclamation and declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, along with the 6-month suspension of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, and all elected members of the Assembly, as announced by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Tuesday night. We have reported that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu aide, Nyesom Wike, who is the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, and the immediate past Governor of Rivers State, that is widely believed to be the apparent root cause of the political crisis in the state, who, shortly after the swearing-in of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, Wike helped to the seat of power, was accused by the sitting governor, Siminalayi Fubara, of trying to use the State House of Assembly to frustrate and impeach him from office, simply because he, Fubara, refused to accept certain terms and conditions they both had in private, which, till now, both refused to tell the public. The apparent personal political misunderstandings that made the governor, Fubara, to resort to self-defense by thus applying some measures within his powers as the governor to frustrate and stop his impeachment from the probably instigated Rivers State House of Assembly lawmakers, whose majority of them, up to 27 members, are seemingly loyal to the FCT minister, who, Wike, a few days ago, was the person that announced through the media to the general public that if an Ijaw son, Siminalayi Fubara, is impeached, nothing would happen, a statement he made, suggesting he may have conspired with the lawmakers to impeach the governor, because by his statements during the press conference, he was probably already doing damage control even when the House of Assembly has not served the governor an impeachment notice. But, in the face of the foregoing facts, the Nigeria Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, at a press briefing a few hours ago at the State House in Abuja, exonerated the FCT minister and said categorically that the FCT minister has no hand in the political crisis that has engulfed the oil-rich Rivers State, leading to militants bombing crude oil pipelines to destroy Nigeria's economy, probably as a way of protesting against the federal government's seemingly one-sided style of handling misunderstandings in the state. We had reported that 2 female lawmakers, Marie Ebekake, PDP, Bayelsa State, and Blessing Amadi, PDP, Rivers State, on Wednesday engaged in a heated argument, almost leading to a fight at the National Assembly ahead of the plenary session scheduled by the National Assembly leadership to discuss, approve, or reject the proclamation of state of emergency declared on Tuesday night by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu over the apparent personal political crisis between the state governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and Tinubu's aide, Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister and the immediate past governor of the South state. We had reported that the former vice president of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, and former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, both of whom were co-contestants as presidential candidates in the last presidential election in Nigeria, have reacted to the state of emergency and suspension of elected government in Rivers State by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, with Atiku accusing and describing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a vested partisan actor in the political turmoil engulfing Rivers State. We had reported that the Nigeria president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in a nationwide broadcast on Tuesday evening, for the first time more than a decade in the history of the West Africa country, declared a state of emergency in Rivers State and suspended for initial 6 months the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, all elected members of the State House of Assembly, and appointed retired Vice Admiral Ibok Itibas as administrator to work with the existing laws of Rivers State with the members of the state judiciary following the apparent personal political crisis between the Rivers State governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and his former boss and the immediate past governor of the state, Nyesom Wike, who is currently the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, that was seen a few days ago in a viral video apparently making careless statements as a government official, statements capable of instigating a particular ethnic group against the government, wherein the FCT minister has said thus, that Ijaw people a minority group in the South and if their son, Fabara is impeached, nothing would happen. After the statements, Wike refused to apologize to the Ijaw people despite public outcry and condemnations. Days after, as confirmed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, some militants started destroying crude oil pipelines in Rivers State as media reports trends and indicated that pro-Wike lawmakers may have concluded plans to impeach Governor Siminalayi Fubara.
What is happening in the country, everybody talks about Rivers State on television, and some of these are the issues we discuss. We're talking about building a society where no one is oppressed as reflected in that top paragraph of our national anthem. As a former president and also from the Niger Delta, when the issue of suspending the governor came up, I think people call on me, oh, President Jonathan, oh, President Obasanjo, you should say something. People expected us to say something about what is happening. And of course, people don't even know that traditionally all over the world, former presidents hardly make statements about what the current presidents are doing because of the tension it could create in the country. In most cases, look at America, look at everywhere. So hardly for former presidents to make sometimes you see and you look. And of course, what is happening in Nigeria today regarding the situation in Rivers State is like an Indian proverb that said that if somebody is sleeping, really sleeping, you can easily wake up that person. But if the person is pretending to sleep, you find it difficult to wake up that person. The key actors in Nigeria, from executive to the legislature, luckily Senator Binta and others are here, and the judiciary, they know the correct thing to do. But they are refusing to do it. They are pretending to sleep. And waking such a person is extremely difficult because the person knows the right thing. A clear abuse of offices, clear abuse of power, clear abuse of privileges, cutting across from the three arms of government, from the executive to the parliament to the judiciary. And I always plead with our people that whatever we do affects everybody. And sometimes we do things and we think that it doesn't affect us. I've been a president before, and even after leaving office as a former president, people get to me. Why is that our passport is not valued that much? Why is that Nigerians are not given the kind of treatment we're supposed to receive at the international airport? Sometimes we think it's because of Yahoo boys or 419. No, not only them. Yes, they are part of the problem. But whatever happens in a country, decisions that are taken by the executive arm of government, decisions that are taken by the parliament, judicial decisions affect everybody. For example, no businessman can bring his money to invest in a country where the judiciary is compromised, where a government functionary can dictate to judges what judgment they will give. No man brings his money to invest in that country because we are taking a big risk. So whatever we do affects everybody. And if we must build a nation for our children and our grandchildren, no matter how painful it is, we must strive to do what is right. It may cost us, but we must endeavor and pay the price to insist on doing what is right. Whether you're holding an executive office as a president, a minister, or a governor, or a special advisor, or executive, whether you're holding an office in the parliament, senate, or rep, whether you're a judicial officer at the high courts or appellate courts, we must strive to do what is right. If we want to build a nation that our children will be.
2 persons have been reportedly killed in southern Lebanon on Saturday as the state-owned media, National News Agency, NNA, reported that Israel has launched airstrikes that hit areas near the villages of Tulin, Kfar Melki, Melita and Wadi al-Wiya Valley, hours after Israel Defense Forces says it intercepted rocket missiles launched from Lebanon on Saturday early morning into the northern Israeli city of Metula, with Al Jazeera reporting Hezbollah to have denied the attacks launched against Israel, which set a complete violation to the US and France ceasefire deal brokered and commenced on November 27, 2024 between Hezbollah and Israel, which Hezbollah has accused Israel of failing to honor the ceasefire completely by thus refusing to move IDF troops out of some Lebanese towns, and killing about 85 persons in Lebanon despite the ceasefire agreement. The Lebanon news agency also reported that a residential building in Tulin was destroyed, leaving 1 dead and 3 wounded. Lebanon's army stated that its troops later discovered and dismantled 3 improvised rocket launchers in the Nabatea area, north of the Litani River. Military units remained deployed in southern Lebanon to maintain security and stability, it said. In a statement issued after the airstrikes, Israel's military said it struck Hezbollah's infrastructure, alleging the Iran-backed group operates from civilian zones. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, called for restraint, cautioning that further escalation could undermine the already strained diplomatic gains. Local media reported that Saturday's rocket fire marked the first such incident from Lebanon since early December. Both Israel and Hezbollah have traded blame for repeated breaches of the ceasefire, which remains technically intact but has been strained by sporadic clashes and unresolved border disputes. The Lebanese national news agency stated that the airstrikes targeted the heights of Mount Safi, the outskirts of Kefahana, Jabal al-Rafi, and the towns of Said and An Kana in southern Lebanon. Adding that 2 Israeli raids targeted Baslia in the Jazin area and Birkit al-Jabor in Kefajuna, southern Lebanon. Israel struck Lebanon on Saturday in retaliation for rockets targeting Israel, in the heaviest exchange of fire since the ceasefire, according to CNN. Israel and Hezbollah fought for months in the wake of the Gaza conflict before Israel launched an intense ground and aerial campaign, decimating the Iran-backed militant group's leadership. Under the ceasefire reached in November, Israeli forces were supposed to withdraw from all Lebanese territory by late January. The deadline was then extended to February 18, 2025 by agreement between Lebanon and Israel, but still, Israeli troops in some of the Lebanese cities. We have reported that there seems to be apparent large full-scale war in the Middle East with imminent more larger deadly combats as President Donald Trump of the United States, US, who pride himself as a messiah of peace, who have returned to the White House to end wars in Asian, European countries, spends less than 9 weeks in office, with Israel military, the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, confirming few minutes ago that the State of Israel intercepted rocket missiles in the northern Israel town of Metula launched on Saturday morning from Lebanon, who have had and maintained ceasefire agreement with Israel since November 2024 after Israel launched massive killing mission in Lebanon, air bombarding the capital city, Beirut, until several Hezbollah members and leaders were killed. This is addition to the resumed large full-scale war in the Palestinian city of Gaza, where reports indicated that Israel have killed not less than 600 persons, including women and children, in the last few days when the ceasefire agreement reached between Israel and Hamas before January 20, 2025, when Donald Trump was sworn in second time as US president, was violated. It would be recalled that Israel and Palestinian fighters, Hamas, have been in war after the October 7, 2023 invasion of southern Israel by Hamas, which led to the killing of thousands of people and kidnapping of hundreds of Israeli residents. Gaza Health Ministry says that Israel's renewed attacks on Gaza that began on Tuesday have killed a total of 634 people and wounded 1,172 persons, including children and women, have been since Israel allegedly broke the ceasefire deal a few days ago, bringing the total death toll Palestinians killed in Gaza to nearly 50,000 since the war began in 2023.
Osasua Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.